Hello! Today we are here to discuss CastleScape. This was one of our Origins finds. Actually, I think Miranda is the one who tracked this one down. I had it on my list to investigate, but it wasn't on my surefire buy list, but she liked it. I liked the looks of it. So she's like, did you have this one? I'm like, yeah, I have it on the list to check out, but if you're interested, go ahead and pick it up. So we have it now.
We have it and played it.
Before we get into the discussion on this, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down there because you don't want to miss out on any of these Origins releases or any of the other games from the closet of 3,000 plus games. So, Rob, what can you tell us about this one?
This is a brand new release. Came out just this year in 2023. The overall rating on Board Game Geek is 10,458. It's ranked at 7.7. Plays 2 to 4 people in about 60 to 90 minutes. It took us a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think that was mostly because we were all
kind of learning
and yelling at Kevin.
Ages 14 and up. I agree with that. This is a little bit of a brutal game, and so you may not younger kids may not take it too well. Designed by Josh Horsley, art by Tracy Van Wagner, published by Praetorian Games. And I don't know if it's readily available retail yet. I only found one actual retail store, Bonanza, at $49.95. eBay had a copy at $55, and Geek Market had one for $60.
All right, so what comes in the box? So you get these nice little plastic castles. There's a lot of them. Not about 100 roughly.
Something like that, because we did 3 rounds of 30, and then there's a few extra.
You get a lot of wooden little bits, mostly cubes and circles, but you do get 2 that have screen printing on them on both sides, actually, which is not usual to see. One represents corruption and one represents infamy in the game. You have cards. The card stock is glossy. There's no
but it's a good thickness.
It is a good thickness, but it's very smooth, slick. There's no linen finish at all. And other than that, that's... Well, you get the board. It's 2-sided. The other side has lettering and numbering on it, but I'm not sure.
I think it's for the solo.
It might be for the solo. We didn't read through the
No,
solos.
It doesn't have a solo.
It doesn't?
It doesn't.
Okay.
I don't know what the other side's for.
So, yeah, I'm not sure what the grid is for, but this side actually is the side that had the castle represented on it that it told you to build off of, so that's what we started with. There may be... It says there's a variant. We didn't read the variant, so it's probably what to do with the other side. And then that's pretty much all that you get in the box.
Yep.
There are some promo additional cards you can add in that were in the box.
But there's a lot of cards. There's a lot of castle walls.
Yeah. I mean, what you get, there's nothing that's just outstanding quality, but it does make a nice
bad
table
quality
presence.
either.
No, it's not bad.
Yeah.
And, the player boards are really solid thickness.
They really are.
They're not thin, bendable cardboard. These are solid. So, I mean... I'll probably go ahead and give this 6.5, 7, probably 7.
I think I'll give it a 7.
Moving on to theme. So this is, you're basically building fortresses to appease your king who's coming to do inspections of your work. And he's got a few qualifiers about what he wants to see as far as fortresses. Presumably it's not Mad King Ludwig.
No,
we're not building like bathrooms in the middle of the forest or
gardens on top of a prison or something.
Yeah, so you're just building purely fortresses, but he doesn't want to see a 2x2 square, because that's wasteful in his eyes. So you can't build that, but you're basically trying to build enclosures similar to Carcassonne as far as trying to surround. But these are not tiles; these are actually just these castles that form the walls. But you're building, in essence, a cityscape. Whoever has dominance when that completes is going to score points for that region. And then every scoring round when the inspection occurs by the king, whoever's got dominance at that point, because it might have changed, will get a victory point for each region. That's the gist of the game, but in the process of doing that, you're doing a deck builder.
Yeah, that's how you're getting the pieces and the control out there.
So you start out with a basic card deck of 10 cards. There's 2 different markets to go to. There's a fixed market, if you will, the standard market, where
it's a stack of the same cards.
Stack of the same cards, a series of cards that are basically upgraded versions of all your starter cards. And then there's the rotating market.
Which we never really understood why it's really called rotating.
Well, it's because new cards are coming in. It's basically a shuffled deck of cards.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's coming next. So you buy a card and then it's replaced. So you could buy something and then set somebody up with something better than what you
Right.
had before, which is kind of frustrating. But that's what happens in all those kind of deck
Yeah,
builders.
pretty much any deck builders like that.
So now, what's unique about this is these infamy and corruption, which we'll talk about more in gameplay. But thematically, I mean, you're building castles. There's nothing, it's completely layered on as far as what the theme is, but the art makes it make sense.
Yeah, and the art's actually pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, especially for the rotating market, you got a lot of unique cards in there, so you
Yeah.
got a lot of unique artwork. So I think the artwork's really nice, actually.
Yeah, the artwork's nice. I think the
board layout looks
the
pretty good.
iconography is not bad on them. The cheat sheet font is tiny. I don't know. There's a trend of that, it seems, lately. A lot of these tiny fonts on cards for the instructions or the cheat sheets. But yeah, everything else is pretty clear in the iconography, and most of it's spelled out in text in addition to the pictures. So, it's not hard to understand what anything does. Every card that has icons on it tells you exactly in the text box what
it does,
what they do, so you don't even need the iconography. I'm probably going to say thematically this is a 6. It doesn't exude anything. It's just you're building fortresses and trying to make areas.
I think 6 is a good score.
All right, so moving on to the rule book. The rule book is 24 pages, but has a nice cover, and it has a backing on it. It has a QR code you can scan that will take you to presumably get more information if you need it.
Or a digital rulebook.
Yes. The rulebooks section actually has a table of contents. You don't see that often in rulebooks. And it's broken out nicely as far as the introduction and overview. All the contents are pictured, showing you how many are supposed to be in the game. The layout of the cards is all described here. The setup on the board is very clear. The player turn order, this is where things got a little muddled. There was a lot of repetitiveness in it.
Yeah. The thing that was weird is that it seemed like it took forever for you to read the rule book.
Yeah.
And I really zoned out.
Yeah.
And it just seemed, the rule book seemed more complicated than what the game really was.
Yeah. There was a lot of redundancy in the book where it would state something and then the next page it would go through and state it in detail again. And if it suffered again from the assumption about you've never played a deck builder, which I guess you have to, because you don't want somebody who hasn't.
True.
Somebody one day is going to pick it up who hasn't played a deck builder.
And it's a little unique in how the deck building is it's a part of the game, but it's not the only part.
So, like, if it says draw a card, it tells you specifically after that, draw a card from your deck. It's like, so it was repetitive in that nature. But they probably have to be fair.
Probably.
But there's just... But even then, they would say it then, and then you turn the page, and it would say draw a card, and then explain it again or something.
But as a listener, it really caused me to zone out.
Yeah.
And so it didn't hurt the game, but he needed to understand it better because I couldn't follow along with the rules just listening to it.
And, there is a little confusion about some of the scoring. It's not, the book does a good job explaining it, but it's easy to get mixed up because whenever you score,
we kind of thought
you place tokens on the board, and those tokens don't come off, but then the control of that region could change because of some of the other
because the recruits can change.
Yes. So, I don't think it's the fault of the rulebook. I think they did a pretty good job explaining it, other than the redundancy. The complexity is just in the play of the scoring and how that works. They do have some nice examples of how the scoring works on here. So I don't think it's really a bad rulebook. I actually think it's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7.5. I think they've done a pretty decent job. I think it's a little more wordy than it needed to be.
Right.
But other than that, I think it's pretty good.
Okay.
So moving on to gameplay. So the gameplay is pretty straightforward. Normally at the beginning of the game, there's only one castle on the board, in the center of the board, and you've got a hand of 10 starter cards, a deck of 10 starter cards, and you're going to draw the top 5.
And everybody has the same cards.
So everybody's got the same hands. There's no flexibility as far as player variant.
There's no asynchronous abilities or anything like that.
And you're going to play your cards, but the sequencing of that is you can play any number of cards into your tableau to play for that round. You can hold any back in your hand, but when you take your actions, you can buy, you can build castles, and you can build recruits. But the only hard and fixed rule is you have to build your castles before you can play your recruits. And that's important because your recruits are these cubes, and you have to build the walls first to prevent you from cheating on the scoring, because you play your walls and then you play these recruits. They have to go on the board. They can't go up on the walls. On the walls is where you get the most power from them, because when you score any region that they touch, you get 2 points of strength for that recruit if they're on the wall. If they're on the ground, they're only worth 1. And they're generally only going to affect one region. Well, actually, they can only affect one region because they would be inside that wall.
Yeah, if it's on the board.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
if it's on the wall, you could potentially affect more.
Right. So you want to build the walls so you can potentially later on build a wall on top of your recruit and put them on the wall. So, you don't get to smash anybody's recruits. Presumably they're smart enough to get out of the way and then climb the ladder
when they see the castle fall down.
Yes. Yeah. So, I don't know how the castle just plummets from the sky. Maybe, that's a glitch in Skyrim, like the mammoths falling. You're basically trying to build enclosures of regions, and whenever you finish one, if you have the controlling majority of strength in that region from your recruits, you will get a point for all of the open spaces inside that enclosure.
They're calling them Baileys.
Yes. So you want to be careful, because you can build a big one, which my goals are for the game, because you get 2 contracts at the start of the game. Mm-hmm. You draw 4 and you pick 2 to keep. Mine were both about having, one, I had to have the biggest region, or a giant region with at least 16 walls in it. And then you had to have the fewest regions. So I thought, well, these 2 kind of go hand in hand. If I'm spending all my effort building this region, I'm probably going to have the fewest. As it turned out, we all tied pretty much for fewest, except for you.
Yeah.
I still ended up qualifying for my goal because ties were counted. But, my focus was building a big region. But the problem is people see that and they start subdividing your region on you. So it's not easy to do that.
It is not easy.
Especially
if you got a group. Well, it's not just Kevin. I mean, if you've got a group of people that are really strategically minded and they can see what you're working for, they're going to want to stop you. So, and it's not hard to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of player interaction because of that. So this is not a game if you like solo, like basically solitaire, joint playing solitaire
There's
games,
a lot of interaction.
Which is what Miranda loves. Mm-hmm. She does not like attacky games. She likes to build things and be left alone. And this is not that. You're going to be messed with if you try to build. The building of the regions is key for scoring, but also you can acquire more cards on your turn. You can do that before or after the building of the castles. The cards, I would say you've got the standard cards, and you have ones that basically give you more money, more building of walls, and more recruits. That's the primary function of them. And then you've got all kinds of variability and things you can do. Now, some of them have on the bottom things that give you infamy or corruption. Now, those are basically underhanded cards where you can either...
They give you more power or more stuff, but there's a negative side effect.
So you can use them. A lot of them have messing with your opponents on them. So if you play one, it goes into the back alley on your board, which is kind of the dark region. And you have to, whenever you have to reshuffle your deck because you've run out of cards, you have to move up your tokens based upon what's at the bottom of all the cards that have accumulated there. And when the king comes to do an inspection, you're going to be paying a penalty for all of the infamy you've collected during that. So I like the concept of that. Mm-hmm. The problem is I don't think it really executed well in the game, because what we found was you could win the game much easier, like what you did, which was just buying things that built walls and just ignoring all of the...
Yeah, I mean, I bought cards, but I just focused on cards that didn't give me infamy.
Right.
And I was able to find cards that worked well that didn't give me infamy. It'd be different if they didn't work as well, but I had a card that gave everybody else infamy, but not me, and I got to draw a card. That's very powerful. Yeah. And so that didn't cause me any negative side effects. I had a card that gave me a bunch of walls, no negative side effects, and a card that gave me 2 recruits with no side effects. So I was just able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, and the corruption in essence acts as an income source for infamy. So that's really a big negative if you get those. So there were cards that had it, and they were more powerful, I guess, but they also, some of them had victory points, and that was probably the big perk of them. But the problem is, if you get that corruption, you're perpetually going to be generating some level of infamy. And every time when the king comes to do the inspection, if you've got infamy, you have to remove recruits from the board.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have enough recruits, then you have to discard cards from your hand. And if you don't have enough of those, you have to start losing victory points. So, you don't want also...
It could really hurt.
Yeah. Also, if you cap out at any point your infamy or corruption on the board, you will start losing victory points. Yeah. And, that can, if you keep bouncing, that could cost you a lot of points. And points are hard to come by in this game.
Yeah. And so we never got that far into where we were losing points, but the infamy did... I don't know if it was a huge negative effect.
I think it hurt Brian.
I think it hurt Brian. Yeah, it hurt him.
He went for a goal that was for having 7 infamy at once and 5 for playing it in one fell swoop.
Yeah, he was able to score a bunch of points initially off that because he got 2 of the gold cards off of that. But that was it.
He ultimately had to remove all of his influence off the board from his recruits as a result. And then whenever we came to scoring, he didn't get any points for those regions. So I don't think it net positive to him a lot for that.
Right.
So, I think there's some issues with how much impact the cards really have. Is it worth it to go up on the infamy and corruption track? We'd have to play it some more, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I don't want to say too early that it's not worth it.
Yeah.
But in our game, I was able to do really well
and dominate. I mean, he totally dominated the game. Of course, it didn't hurt that Kevin ignored you for the most part. He's a couple times.
Well, he did that one region.
One region, but it didn't even affect you that badly.
That really not badly. I mean, he did affect me in one section that kind of sucked. But, I mean, in the one region, I scored like 8 points off of it. And he could have screwed me over on that, and he chose not to. Yeah. But I don't think he really saw it. I think he was kind of focused on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead
the person had 0 points in the game. Yeah. He was focused on me. And, and I was in last place until the very end.
But he caught up and got second place.
Yeah, because at that point I was like, screw it. I'm just going to see how many points I can accumulate now. There's no point in trying to go for my goals. And I ended up achieving them anyway because, everybody had the same number. But I got bigger regions for all mine because of that. I like the concept of this. I think the deck building is a cool idea with this. And I just think there could have been something to make it more important, this infamy and corruption track. And maybe it will get more important the more we play.
Yeah.
But given the fact that this is an attacky type game, I don't see Miranda playing it.
Absolutely not.
So we're going to have to find times when she's not available to play it. But
I think Caleb would like this a lot.
Oh, I think Caleb would, but I think I would not want to play it with him.
I think we just have to go in that mindset, knowing
we know that
it becomes super brutal.
I think there's a lot of positives for this. I think there's some negatives as far as what we've seen so far. And yes, it's definitely one that you could potentially lose friends over if you're not careful.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why, and again, just we want to make sure that attitude of the gamer that you're playing with is being amicable enough to say, all right, no big deal.
Yeah.
So.
And it didn't help that tonight we were playing 2 attacky games back to back. Right. So that probably didn't help either. As far as scoring on this, I think I'm probably going to give it a 7, I think is where I'm at. I think it's a decent game. I think I'd like to see more from the cards, and I hope that we find ourselves utilizing the cards more. I should point out there's also victory points on some of those cards. Some of them actually went up as high as like 6 points. So they were pretty valuable.
Yeah.
But those are ones that had a lot of the corruption and such that you had to. So you basically would want to carry it in your deck without playing it.
Without playing it.
Yeah.
See, but without really focusing on the market, I don't know if that's a viable strategy in the game. It might be.
Yeah.
If you build up a lot of gold and all you're doing is buying cards, that might work.
Yeah. I mean, there were some good ones. I did get that 1/6 cost one that had where you built 4 walls and removed an infamy.
Oh, wow.
That was really nice, but I got it at the very end of the game, but it didn't matter. I had just horrible luck on the card draws because I had like 2 cards to trash cards in my hand. I never got to use. I got one right at the very beginning. I got one of them, and the other one I got a little bit later.
Didn't have anything to trash.
I had never. Every time I got it, was like when my deck was empty, my discard was empty, or I never had any of the things that produced the infamy. That I was wanting to trash. So I basically never got to use any of them. And every time I needed walls, all I got was money.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was not a great draw for me, but still managed to get second. So I was pretty happy with the end result.
And I was pretty happy. I did real well.
Yeah.
So,
so what was your?
I think a 7 is a good score as well. I might be a 7.5, but I think 7 is a good, decent score. I think that this would reward a couple multiple playthroughs. I'm just afraid it might get a little stale after maybe 6, 7 times, unless they maybe add some more cards with some expansions.
Oh, there's
or
a little
like
expansion
that.
pack
I know,
in the box.
But I mean, if they kind of expand maybe what happens on the board, or maybe some different abilities when you build the Baileys, different stuff like that might happen. I could see maybe this having a longer life to be able to keep it on in your collection. But otherwise, I could see this getting a little old, maybe after a year or two.
Yeah, but it does go pretty quick. I mean, with
once we got moving, it was moving pretty quick.
Because with 4 players is what we played with. There's 30 castles amongst you in the pool for each round,
and our last round went super fast.
Because by that point you built up castle cards.
Twice I was able to build like 7. You built 7 walls. I built like 8 walls and 7. I did like 15 in one round myself.
So yeah, you can end up ending it real quick when that happens. Yeah, I think it's one that if you don't mind, if you like the cutthroat back and forth on it, and you like area control, this is probably a good. And you like deck building, obviously. This is probably a good game for you to give a try. And
it's different.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
Yeah, and I like that aspect of it too.
So. All right, well, that's our thoughts on CastleScape. If you have gotten a chance to play it, let us know what you think. Or if you just like building castles or making enemies of your friends, let us know in the comments below.
All right.
Talk to you next time. Bye.